The Epstein Dossier: Power, Deception, and the Traffic of Innocence. Jeffrey Epstein was not a typical name in the financial world. The story of this man does not lie in stock market tickers or hedge fund successes, but in the darkest corners of power and depravity. To understand why this case shook the global foundation, we must start with his mysterious rise. Epstein began his career in an almost impossible way. He was a physics and math teacher at the elite Dalton School without ever having earned a college degree. From the classroom, he made a sudden leap to Wall Street, rising rapidly through the ranks at Bear Stearns before founding his own firm. However, the source of his wealth remained a persistent enigma. He claimed to manage money only for clients with a net worth exceeding $1 billion. Yet, in reality, his vast fortune seemed built on relationships and favors, rather than traditional financial transactions. Epstein's Manhattan mansion was one of the largest private residences in New York City, but that was merely the surface. The epicenter of his crimes was Little St. James, a private island in the U.S. Virgin Islands, later infamously dubbed Pedophile Island. Here, alongside his longtime associate Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein established a sex trafficking network of industrial proportions. Maxwell was far more than a companion. She was the architect of the system. She used her high society status and aristocratic charm to recruit young girls, some as young as 14, who were often in vulnerable situations or chasing dreams of a better life. They were lured with the promise of professional massage therapy or educational opportunities, but in truth, they were stepping into an inescapable trap. Epstein turned these victims into part of a pyramid scheme of abuse. The girls were coerced into sexual acts and then paid to recruit their own peers. This kept the supply of victims constant and created a forced silence, as victims were manipulated into feeling like accomplices. This massive cover-up persisted for decades, shielded by Epstein's little black book of powerful friends. His private jet, the Lolita Express, completed hundreds of flights, carrying not just victims but world-class figures, former presidents, tech titans, and members of the British royal family, such as Prince Andrew. The haunting question remains: were these individuals merely passengers, or were they part of a client base that Epstein used to purchase legal immunity? The answer began to surface during the 2008 case in Florida. Despite dozens of victims coming forward with harrowing testimonies, Epstein secured a non-prosecution agreement, NPA, that shocked the legal world. He served only 13 months in a county jail with a work release privilege that allowed him to go to his office during the day. The deal was kept so secret that the victims weren't even notified, a flagrant violation of the Crime Victims' Rights Act. This remains the biggest red flag. Who exerted the pressure to grant a prolific trafficker such an unprecedented deal? The truth seemed buried until 2019, when investigative journalism and public outcry forced federal prosecutors in New York to reopen the case. Epstein was arrested at Teterboro Airport with over 3 million pages of evidence. But just as the world prepared for a trial that promised to expose the elite, a shocking event occurred. On the morning of August 10, 2019, Epstein was found dead in his cell at the Metropolitan Correctional Center, one of the most secure jails in America. The official ruling was suicide by hanging, but the circumstances were riddled with staggering anomalies. Why did both guards responsible for monitoring him fall asleep simultaneously and then forge their patrol logs? Why did the security cameras outside his cell malfunction at the exact hour of the incident? Why was Epstein's cellmate transferred out just days before the event? Most notably, independent forensic experts hired by Epstein's family pointed out that the fractures in his hyoid bone are more commonly associated with manual strangulation than with suicidal hanging. Public suspicion turned toward the theory of silencing. Epstein knew too much. He held evidence of the perverse habits of the world's most powerful men. If he had spoken at trial, political careers and business empires would have crumbled in an instant. Though Epstein is dead, his shadow continues to haunt the halls of power. Ghislaine Maxwell was eventually caught and sentenced to 20 years in prison in 2021, but she has maintained her silence regarding the identities of the clients. However, court documents unsealed between late 2024 and early 2026 have begun to name names. We see the names of prominent politicians, Nobel Prize-winning scientists, and billionaires behind the world's largest tech corporations. These documents do not just show flight logs. They reveal emails discussing special requests and arrangements. The Jeffrey Epstein case is not just a story about a wealthy predator. It is a damning indictment of a system where money can buy silence, where influence can bend the scales of justice, and where the lives of children are treated as currency. The questions surrounding his death may never receive an official answer, but the truth about the network he built is slowly being dragged into the light. This is a war between brave survivors and a sophisticated system of concealment. Until the last person in that black book is held accountable, the Epstein dossier will remain a bleeding wound in modern society.